Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. And today we got a very special project to build. This is a scale model, a full-size model of our 52-inch B pattern saw. We have a backup blade that we never really bring out anymore, but it is a B pattern, 52-inch in diameter. Why would I build such a thing? Because every year we went to the Bunion show, John Clark, frickin' Jeep, brought a real saw blade and everybody signed it, and it was just a beautiful thing. People would show up at the booth and everybody wanted to sign the saw blade. John would go as far as to sandblast it and paint it. John's not going to come to the Bunion show this year. I have to carry on a tradition, so I am not going to tote a real saw blade down to the Bunion show. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. But I figured, why don't we build a scale model, a real full-size model of a saw blade. And I'll show you through this whole video how to build a template, how I laid it out. There's a lot of information. This is going to be a fairly long video, so get yourself something to drink or a snack, sit back and enjoy it. And John, this video is for you, buddy. So let's get going. Well, how we're going to make a wooden saw blade, this is step number one. You got to see how nice it turned out in the end. So, first step is going to start with a circle. And I had made a scale model. This is the 24-inch saw blade, and this is the master template, which I can repeat these blades over and over again with the accuracy. But before you get into all that, well, how are we going to make this thing happen? So you start out just to do a layout. You want it to look right, first of all. And second of all, you want consistency. You want these to lay out the same. So we're using a wooden saw bit and shank. This is basically like the saw pawl. And when they sit in there and glue in, they will be beautiful how they're going to set in there. Well, that was step number one, just to come up with a design. And so basically, there's a couple jigs involved here. So basically, I start out with my homemade compass, whatever you want to call it. And you basically put a pencil through a block of wood, a finished nail through a dowel rod. You start in the center and you just trace this around. I made two different circles on this. The outside diameter of the actual saw, and then another circle is going to tell me where the center of the holes will be when I start drilling the pockets in. Accuracy is so important here, because if you just get a hole saw and you just, oh yeah, I forgot to show this. Use a pair of dividers or a compass, whatever you want to call it, and you basically are just going to walk off everywhere a saw bit in a pocket will be, and you want it to end up the same on the end, so you don't end up with a tooth this far apart and ones that are 4 inches apart. So you want to make sure that that works out. So we got the actual blank for the template made up. Oh, this has just been, it's been kind of a nightmare. The 24-inch was really simple to do. But getting back to the hole saw, you don't want to just hold the hole saw blindly and just start sending it down through there, because you're going to end up with all kind of things that are going to be off. So I had an old doweling jig that has a hardened drill bit guide in it. So this is hardened metal designed to run a drill bit, and it keeps it absolutely at 90 degrees, because you don't want to start walking that bit in and out. Then I made a little indicator on it, and this will tell me everywhere that there will be a saw bit to put on there. And then this is a 1/4-inch bolt or machine screw. And if we can get that to lock back in there, there it is. So if you look at the accuracy, as you bring this thing around, it's going to be perfect. It's going to make just a total circle on it. So the first step here, and I'm not sure what you're going to be able to see, after I laid it out, I had to extend these lines. And so what we're going to do is bring this guy over to the little indicator. And I really have no clamping method to hold this. So hopefully if I just hold it in place and send a drill bit down through it, now, if you look at that, that gives me a place. Yeah, it's hard to put cameras and try to film. So now that puts the hole saw pilot bit, it has a place to go. And it will follow that absolutely straight down through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this bit out a little bit on this mandrel. And we can do that with nothing more than there's a set screw that holds this in right there. We can extend this out further so that this, when it comes down through the 1/4-inch hole I just created, it'll keep that hole saw perfectly in line, because we want to end up with these pockets all the way around the blade. So that's going to be our first step here. So I'm going to go through and do all the pilot holes, and then when we come back, we're going to start using a hole saw, and then we're going to resort to another jig to cut the shoulders. And when I mean shoulders, the shoulders, we're gonna round them back, because when the saw bit goes in here, you want them to sit in the pocket. And like I said, this has been a process. And as this evolves, these were sitting too deep, and I think this one here, I finally got it where I wanted it, so that the saw bit comes up flush with that shoulder. And then there's another jig that we're going to have to do the little inlay work. So we got a lot of work ahead of us. So let's get this template made so we can go ahead and get our actual piece of wood and start building a saw blade. Well, now that we got all the holes drilled, and I believe there's 39 of them, we're going to trim the excess off. We're going to leave at least 1/8 of an inch on here. So I'm just going to use just nothing more than a handheld saber saw. And like I said, leave a bunch of excess, and we're just going to come around on this. Next step is cutting shoulders in the saw blade. And this is a little tricky, because the saw bit will sit exactly in line with that. It comes up to the shoulder, and then it goes to the next bit, and so on and so forth. And you want a nice rounded shoulder on it. So I come up with this jig. This is basically just one of my saw shanks that I cut a piece off of. And what you're going to do is this going to sit down in the pocket before. And we're going to bring it up until it just touches that line right there. And once it's on that line, we're going to clamp. I don't know how much you can even see here. Not dust everywhere. Working with this medium density fiber, MDF. Beautiful for templates, but it's like really, really dusty to work with. So anyhow, we're going to get that cut on there. So we go right to that line, we lock it down. I put another little clamp on the back side here. And then the tool we're going to use is this handheld router. This is what I went and bought the other day on the video when you see me up at Lowe's. This bearing follows the template, and these two carbide cutters do the work. Being careful when you put this on your workpiece not to be back too far and cut something you just got done machining. So you want to give it a good visual, making sure that this thing, when it comes on, it's going to spin free. And this is that router with the variable speed. When you're cutting with a bit that big, you do not want to be spinning 18,000 RPMs. So we'll bring it up to speed. And we're just going to follow that around. And we're going to do this 39 times. And this will complete the template. And our next step after this template is we're going to go ahead and get some pine. We're going to glue it up, and we're going to make the two halves of the saw. We're going to start building an actual wooden saw blade. So I'm getting really excited. The template is coming along, and when you see me next time, we're going to be starting to mill some pine up. I got ourselves some nice pine boards here, and we're going to make this thing in two pieces. Reason being is just to transport the darn thing when it's done, and it'll just work better with the template, the whole deal. So I got some boards here that I had run through the joiner and flattened the bottoms on them. And our next step is we're going to go through the planer. We got to get these down to almost final thickness where I can tune it up on the wide belt sander, because my wide belt sander goes 36 inches, my planer goes 24 3/4. And these are going to be 26-inch pieces. So in order to do that, we got to get the planing very close to where we want it. I got everything laying. It's fairly flat. Now when I put it on an easel to display the thing, the easel will actually pull that back nice and flat, because it's going to be hard to make a pine board that is 52 inches in diameter that's going to be dead flat. It's almost impossible. But these boards were fairly flat from the day they dried. We put them on sticks, and I mean, you look at some of these boards here, you're looking at 15. These here, I cut them down to 12 inches. Now, they were 17 inches wide. What I'm trying to do is lay it out so that I don't have no knot that'll be in the middle of a saw bit. Now, if this lies in the middle of the saw bit, I can cut it out, but I don't want that, you know, on the edge of a shank or something, because that would be very unstable. And it looks like coming up the sides here, we're going to be nice and clear. I don't mind a few knots in the middle of the board. That's actually going to be pretty. We got a little bit of blue stain, which I'm going to permit in there because I just want a little bit of look with this thing. So let's go over to the planer, get these down to the final thickness, and then we'll go ahead and get these jointed up, get everything fit up, and then we'll glue it. So that's our next step. Well, I got them down to their final thickness, and I want to keep this as thick as possible just for the stability of it. So it's right now it's sitting at about 7/8 of an inch, and I'm kind of liking the way I'm seeing it here. You sort of try to get the color variations to match. I could probably turn this one around now that I'm looking at it, and you'll see what I mean here. yeah, you'll get the darker variations here, and it gets lighter as it goes out. There was a little bit of staining in the log, but as the diameter of the blade comes around, I think I can get rid of some of this. And just basically, you want to go by what looks pleasing to the eye. There's people that preach grain, the sapwood up, sapwood down. Don't ignore them people. That has nothing to do with stability in wood. A flat board's a flat board. If it dries flat and it stays flat, it will be flat. I don't agree with the sapwood up and down. Go by looks. And I think this is going to be really beautiful when it's done. And if you look at a sample of, this is another blank that I am making, a smaller one. And you can see how the knots really are going to play into it real nice. So once we get this joined up, we're going to go to the joiner next. Once it's into a blank and we got the actual pockets cut in it, then I go back on the back side. We're going to throw a bevel to it, and that'll make the appearance of the blade look a little bit thinner as you're looking at the rim of the saw. So that's just one of the other little projects I got going at the same time here. So let's go to the joiner. Enough BS in here. And I'm trying to make this video interesting, but not overly detailed. This is the first saw blade I ever built out of wood. And I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but we're going to find out. And I hope you can come out and sign the thing. Give it one more pass, then we're going to start testing it as far as fit up. And while we're at it, let's do the other edge. Well, 3 more boards to go, and let's see how it looks when it's all jointed up. All right, I laid the template on the boards before I glued anything up. Reason being is I'm going to put some biscuits in the glue up here, and I do not want a biscuit to land by accident right there where it'll show its edge in the template or on the actual saw blade. So we got to lay it out so that I know that if I put the biscuit back there somewhere, it'll be out of the way. And the other problem that I'd come across is I wanted to make sure also where the joints are, it's not going to be in a critical place. Coming up to here, this will be just fine because there'll be a pocket that will be routed out for the back side of that saw bit, and that'll be hidden. And the other problem was, we talked about the knots on the edge. And I positioned that where I can cut that out, removing that knot completely, and that should not be a problem. So you gotta, it's like playing a game of checkers. You gotta think a couple moves ahead. People that get themselves in trouble in woodworking, they just get in a big hurry, and they forget about a lot of little details. Everything is details when you're doing projects like this. And you know, when you start out with a prototype, and that's how I started out, and you just keep working all the problems out until you come down to a master template, and then you know, all the little details. So this project, it's been a lot of fun so far. I'm really looking forward to seeing it when it's done here. So next step now, I will mark all the locations of the biscuits, making sure that nothing's going to be in a bad place. And we're going to go ahead and cut a couple biscuit slots, glue it up, and leave it dry, and then we'll start cutting out the actual blade. All right, let's cut some slots in it. I'm going to be using a number 20 biscuit, and I'm not a big fan of these. A lot of people thought that these added a lot of strength. They really don't do nothing far as that, but they are perfect for alignment. It's like putting a spline in something. And I'm going to be using I have a DeWalt. Some people call it a plate joiner, some people call it a biscuit cutter. Don't want to get an argument about what the heck the thing's called, but we're going to set it on a number 20 biscuit, and what it will do is it comes out and it hits a stop on it, and it's going to expose that much blade, cutting a slot. We're going to do both sides, so you got a corresponding slot, and then once they're cut in there, we're just going to use nothing more than some yellow woodworker's glue. I happen to use Tight Bond 2, Tight Bond 2. It's a good yellow glue. It's very strong, but that's what we're going to do. So I'll show you how we cut these slots in there. And you basically just come up to the line. You want to make sure it's nice and tight to the board. And you can see I measured back to the distance that I had laid out so that I didn't put it in the wrong place. Simple as that. And basically, you're going to put these in with a little bit of glue, and that'll perfectly align the surface. And if Mark Fowler's watching this video, he's the gentleman I worked with at the cabinet shop, and he had a bad accident with one of those machines. But be very careful when you're using them. If the board kicks out, you're using something small, and that's basically what happened to him. But I don't care how small the woodworking tool is, there's, you got to really be careful. Use a lot of common sense, and you should keep yourself safe. Complacency is your worst enemy in a wood shop. And just remember that. When you're too comfortable with the situation, that's when things happen. I'm going to get these glued up. I'm not going to put that on camera. It's nothing more than just putting some glue, putting them together, putting on clamps. Next time I see you, we're going to be at the wide belt sander. We're going to put the final thickness to it with the sander, and then we're going to start cutting out the blade. So we'll see you then. There you have it. There's our blank canvas, and I'm really liking what I see. I had went ahead after I was done sanding it. I put 4 biscuits in just for alignment purposes when we put it on display. So we're going to get the templates, and I put an X on the top of this one here because this is that location we had the that bad knot. So what we're going to do is we're going to split this thing right on the seam, and I did the same thing with the template too. I got biscuits in here, but for now I'm not going to put them in. We're not going to be routing it quite yet. So what you want to do is get everything in line making sure that that all lined up where it should. And once we're satisfied, we're going to take a pencil, we're going to go all the way around the outside of this and trace it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a little scrap of wood with the hole saw. And with my 2-inch hole saw, I can't see where I put anything out here. But anyhow, what we're going to do is we're going to get, oh, here they are. So we drilled the template with the 2.5 inch to make the actual pockets. So I got a 2.25 inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark centers of all those locations, and we're going to drill down through with this 2.25 to remove the most of the scrap out of there, so that we're not in there with the saber saw going all the way around it. I think this will be much faster. And then we'll cut it close with the saber saw. Once we're satisfied with it, we're going to go ahead and drill a center hole down through the bench, clamp this thing so it can't move, and we're going to get that router, and we're going to start cutting it out. It's actually going to be trimmed out with a router. So we'll go ahead and get this thing traced up, get the locations laid out for the 2.25 inch holes, and we'll go ahead and get this thing roughed out, and then we'll be ready to back bevel it and start making the actual saw bits. So I'll see you here in a bit. Well, a simple little solution to this problem, I'm just using a piece that I had cut out from the original, putting it in the pocket, eyeballing it so I have a margin around there, and just basically just get the drill and just give it a mark on it, and we're going to go around and do this around the whole saw. And the purpose of this is when it comes time to cut this out rough, we will get the 2.25 inch hole saw. Now it's going to pilot on that, and we will have enough clearance around there so we don't cut into the actual workpiece. And this will take all the excess away, and all we'll have to do with the saber saw is just come around the whole outside and just cut these little fingers out, and then we'll route it all off. So I'm going to continue this around, and let's keep prepping this thing for the router. Well, now that I got all these holes laid out, I went from underneath and just scored it so that we don't blow the whole back side of it out. So now, very carefully with the hole saw, making sure that that is not going to take off material we don't want to take off. The problem being with pine, it likes to gum up hole saws, but and there we go. Got to do that 39 times, and then all I'm going to do is get the saber saw and just cut this close and get this thing roughed out, and we'll have a bunch of little wheels. Yeah, pine is very very sappy, as frickin' Jeep would say. It's sticky wood, and this is proving it here. So well, I'm going to continue on, and when I see you next time, we'll have all this roughed out, ready to actually put the router to it. So we're making progress. All right, that is what that template was all about, and you can see it just makes a perfect cut. So this is all just like being totally CNC machined at this point, but it's all done by hand. And if you take your time and make a good template, you can make a good product. And this thing's repeatable as many times as you want to use it, as long as you don't damage your template. I'm using, again, I showed this earlier, we're using this, I think this is 1¼ inch diameter cutter, and it has the bearing to follow the actual bit. It cuts the exact same size as the diameter of that bearing. So every time you get this bit sharpened, there'll be a little bit of a shoulder. So if you're going to run this template and you have to have it the same size, you should start with a brand new bit, and you could actually use the other bit to rough it in with and then come back and finish it. But we're going to go ahead and finish routing this out, and then we can start working on saw bits and getting a nice finish on this thing. And then we have to build a easel to mount it on so we can display it. So we got a lot to do, so I'm going to get back to routing. All right, we're ready to talk saw bits here. And I get the wooden saw bits through Simon Saws, and you can get them in whatever species of wood you want. This happens to be a B pattern, and so that's where the saw bits come from. So we have to route a pocket. So, I don't know where we're at in the camera here, but we're going to try our best. So we're going to need a pocket here to set the bit in, and that is material that's got to be removed, and they call that process inlaying. So we're going to be basically inlaying the bit into the blade. So when I had wrote the program for the actual bit, I made one larger, and I made one, so I cut inside of the line and outside the line, which created an 1/8 of an inch border around the whole thing. So this was actually the piece that was cut out with the CNC, and now I can clamp this onto the blade, and this becomes my template. And I'm going to be using a handheld router with an 1/8 inch bit, and this is a Porter cable inlay attachment that goes into the base of the router. It also has a brass collar that clips over this, so you can cut a positive and a negative, and you can inlay wooden objects into anything. You could actually inlay this down into the blade if you wanted to. So basically, I have everything already worked out. So we clamp that onto the blade, and with the actual handheld router, we're going to put it in place. And we're making sure that when I turn this on, that the bit will not be engaging into the wood. So let's turn you around that way, and I'll show you how I cut that out. Let's and it's safer to let the router stop before you pull it up out. And before we remove the clamp, we want to make sure that we removed every speck of that. There was one little high spot there, but that'll come off easy. So then we take our clamp off, and if you look on the back side of that, it's got a little bit of a radius. Well, it's only going to cut square with that router, so we're going to shave a little bit of a radius on there. We're going to back cut it. And when this goes into place, you'll see it fits very nicely. So to install these bits, we're going to just continue on where we left off here. Basically, it's going to be glued in with some just good old yellow woodworker's glue. So let's get you back in to where you can see partially what's going on here. And we're just going to put some glue on this surface and around the outside of the shank here. And this is all that's going to hold it in place. Then we're just going to get good old spring clamp, pinch that into place, and then on the back side you want to make sure that that don't stick up too high. Just put another clamp here. Everything's nice and in place, and any excess will be sanded off later. So I'm going to continue around the saw, and I decided cherry would be a nice option. So the next little clip coming up is how I actually did this. So we'll get to see the creation of a saw bit and shank. All right, let's talk about saw bits. I can't tell a lie. I did not buy these through Simon's Saw Company. These are actually made on my CNC machine. The first step, I had to write a program on my V-Carve Pro. I started with 2 circles, a 2.5 inch and a 3 inch circle, and then through their drawing things you can do, you can actually draw with the V-Carve Pro with your mouse. I literally did the lines and stuff and drew it and clipped all the excess, and an hour later I had a program to make saw bits. Years ago, a company out the road from us, he had come out with a saw claw, or the saw paw, whatever he had called these. He'd come out with a 1-piece bit and shank. Normally, you will have a shank, some people call them a ring, and then you got your bit, it locks in like that. So it gives you this configuration. And I modeled this after a B pattern saw because they're bigger and there's fewer in the saw. I didn't want to go with the F like we're running because that would have been even more work. So how do we route them? You will need either painter's tape, blue, green, masking tape will work, or if you want to spend extra money, buy double-faced tape. And then you will need, I'm not even sure what this stuff's even called, but this is glue that is activated with an accelerant, and I'm sure someone will tell me what it is, but anyhow, you can buy this anytime you're working with CNC equipment. Normally around their bits and stuff, you'll find this stuff. So what you're going to start with is a spoil board out of any piece of scrap plywood, anything, it don't matter. So we'll just use, for this demonstration, we're just going to use the blue painter's tape, and we are going to put it on both surfaces. We're going to make our bits for the saw out of cherry wood, and you want to cover your spoil board where you're going to glue. So it really don't matter. I sand these ahead of time, so we're going to do the same thing on our piece of cherry. Because if you were to run this through the CNC machine without putting adhesive on the back of it, it will grab each individual bit and probably destroy them or snap a bit on your machine. So that's not a good idea. Then you'll need something, I don't know, a little piece of wood or something just to spread the glue. This nozzle broke on this one, so I am just trying to use up the rest of it. So I'm going to spread it on. Don't matter which side you're going to spread it on, but this just seemed to work. So you just want to put some down, make a few lines, and get your little block of wood. If you get this on your fingers, it will stick without the accelerator. So almost like it almost acts like super glue. And you can reuse these spoil boards over many, many times. So that's good there. We're going to spray the activator on the bottom of the cherry, and we're just going to stick this down to the spoil board. So there we go. That is done. Now we just need a straight edge, and what I always do is my program was written with access to the center of the workpiece. You can use any corner. I always prefer the center. So this piece is now prepped for the CNC machine. So let's go over to the CNC machine, get this clamped in. We're going to 0 it in, and then we're going to let the program run, and we will have 6 saw bits laid out on this board. So let's go get that done. All right, the piece is clamped in the machine. I got all the accesses zeroed, and I got my depth of cut. So basically, we're just going to hit OK, because it's saw bits 2. That's my program. And it goes through that. And it's going to come on, and we're going to see some saw bits appear here shortly. All right, we got 1 coat of sanding silver, 2 coats of top coat lacquer on this thing, and I put a satin finish on it. And while we were away, I went ahead and put together this quick little easel, and this is how I'm going to display the blade. And basically it's nothing more than it's a 3-legged easel, and I put these aluminum brackets, and everywhere there's a hole, we are going to attach a threaded insert into the blade from the back side. So basically this is a 1/4-20 brass insert, and I have a little drill jig here, so I'm going to put the camera back up on a stand here, and I got everything marked out from the back because this is a one-shot deal here. But we'll be able to take this apart real easily, and we won't have to be fighting it. The reason I'm using the drill guide, it gives you a depth stop, so you can't over drill and then find out that, oops, I just poked through the front of the saw. We don't want to do that. So here is one of my locations, so I'm just going to put that brad point bit down into it, if I could ever find the darn thing. And this drill guide is just really kind of crappy, but that's all I got. So, okay, the brad's in there. I'm just trying to keep it up straight. And keep it from going through the front of it. So, basically, they come with a slotted top, and you just stick it into the hole nice and squarely, and just. Some say that you shouldn't use these in pine. You should have more of an aggressive thread, but I'll tell you what, I did a couple tests on these things, and you are not getting these out unless you really blow that piece of pine apart. So we're going to put the rest of these in, and this video is coming close to an end here. But you're never going to see none of this stuff. It's on the back side of the blade, and then there's a, like I said, it's threaded for 1/4 and this will hold it into the bracket real nicely. So when I see you next time, we'll be looking at the blade. All right, we're testing out the easel here, and everything looks really good, but there's one thing missing. What do you think that could be? I think we need a collar on that saw and make it look a little bit more realistic, and I think that'll be the crown jewel on the blade. But all in all, everything worked out really good from the standpoint of the easel, and this was just all stuff that was laying around in my shop, and that's why I saved stuff. And this has just turned out to be some nice oak, and we'll have we're gonna have 4 different species of wood tied up in this blade. So let's go over to the CNC machine and let's mill something up. I think we can make a nice collar and make it look realistic. Well, we're going to make a walnut saw collar, and it's going to take this thing a little while to chamfer that off, but I think the detail is going to be worth it. Well, about 15 minutes later, and there it is. There's our tapered collar for the saw. Well, with a little bit of magic with the CNC machine and stuff that I had laying around, I come up with a pretty good collar. So this will be the piece that's going to go against the saw blade, and it's a 1/4 insert like we used to hold the saw blade onto the easel. So that's the back side. And the business end here, this is where we had cut that tapered program on there. And I'm kind of liking the little machining marks in there. I don't know if I'm going to attempt to take those out. I'm just going to smooth it up a little bit for lacquer. So we're going to glue them 2 pieces together. And then this is a piece of all thread that was off of a actual light standard for lights and out in the parking lot. So I'd cut a piece off, and it's going to go into this hole with some epoxy after the finish is done. And I'll tell you what, you'd have a hard time making a collar to look more realistic. And I like the look of the walnut. And I don't know if I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, paint it flat black. I'm not sure what I want to do. I kind of like that, the aged look. And it kind of looks like it's off of an actual mill. So this is the final steps here, and we'll be just about wrapping this project up. Well, my favorite part of every video when I'm doing woodworking is to see how something turned out after you've been working on it for, this took about a full week to do this project. But now we have ourselves a pattern, and if I wanted to make another one, it would not be as labor intensive. You can lay the pattern on there, and again, it breaks right here, so it comes apart in 2 pieces. It'll be very easy to transport. I didn't show much on the easel, but it's nothing more than just a tripod out of wood, and this video was just getting too long. But you don't have to make it 52 inches. And if you wanted to make yourself a nice little wall hanging, you can do a 24 inch and make yourself a clock. I actually went ahead and made a collar for it too. So you could put some hands on this thing and make yourself a clock out of it. Again, if you have a little bit of woodworking skill and you wanted to make yourself a actual saw blade, I'm sure you could do this. I gave you enough information. The saw bits, again, they'll take a little bit of time to write a program for it, but it's just 2 circles, 2.5 and 3 inch. And that's what this is based off of. And then I just did some freehand drawing and it worked out good. So if you like the video, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. It sure helps the channel. And thank you for staying to the end if you're watching it now. And we'll catch you on the next one. We're going to be at the Bunyan Show coming up October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. This is 2025. And come on out and sign the thing. We're going to have Sharpies and we're going to let everybody sign the blade and then we can display it. So thanks again and we'll catch you on the next video. Alrighty. Bye-bye.